one time I opened up a pack of tuna. Michael's like, no, don't ever open up a pack of tuna again. I was on diet,
sometimes,
80 calories.
when we're riding in the van together, this is my no-no.
Frank Fritz spent years telling America he could spot treasure in other people's junk. But when the cameras stopped rolling and his own garage was finally exposed, fans weren't prepared for what they saw. Hidden behind closed doors was a collection that raised eyebrows and hinted at obsessions far darker and stranger than the wholesome picker persona on TV. So, what was hidden, and why did it change everything? Join us as we unveil what was found in Frank's garage that shocked everyone. The collection that defined a lifetime. Frank Fritz wasn't just a picker for the cameras. Long before American Pickers premiered in 2010, Frank was already deep into the world of antiques. His garage was a carefully curated museum of everything he had spent a lifetime acquiring. When images and reports about Frank's personal collection began circulating, fans were immediately struck by the sheer volume. This wasn't a casual hobby or a side project for TV. Frank's garage was packed floor to ceiling with items that represented decades of dedication to the hunt. Motorcycles dominated much of the space. Frank had always been open about his love for vintage bikes, particularly those from the 1930s through the 1960s. But seeing the actual collection was different from hearing him talk about it. Rare Indian motorcycles, pristine Harley-Davidsons, and obscure European models lined the walls. What made the motorcycle collection particularly impressive was its condition. These weren't projects waiting to be finished, or rusted hulks picked up cheap. Many were fully restored, museum-quality machines that could fetch 6 figures at auction. Frank had the picker's eye for finding diamonds in the rough, but he also had the patience and resources to bring them back to life. Beyond the motorcycles, the garage housed an overwhelming array of vintage signs, gas station memorabilia, and advertising pieces. Porcelain signs from long-defunct businesses covered nearly every available wall space. Neon signs, some working and some awaiting repair, added splashes of color to the organized chaos. Frank saw these pieces as fragments of American history, physical reminders of how people lived, worked, and traveled in earlier eras. Fans who had followed American Pickers for years thought they understood Frank's passion. But seeing his personal collection revealed a level of commitment that went beyond what the show ever depicted. This wasn't about making money or finding the next great flip, but about preservation and rescuing pieces of the past before they disappeared forever. The collection also revealed Frank's incredible knowledge. To amass something this specific and high quality required not just money, but expertise. Frank could identify manufacturers, date items to the year, and spot reproductions from authentic pieces. He was a genuine expert who had earned his place in the collecting world. What made the discovery even more poignant was the timing. By the time many fans learned the full extent of Frank's collection, he was already dealing with serious health issues that would eventually force him away from picking entirely. The garage represented not only what he'd found, but also what he was in danger of losing. But the motorcycles and signs were just the beginning. What else was hidden in that garage that fans never expected? The secret obsession nobody saw coming. While motorcycles and vintage signs made sense for someone in Frank's line of work, a deeper investigation into his garage revealed a collection that surprised even longtime viewers. Toys. Not just any toys, but an extensive museum-worthy collection of vintage toys and children's memorabilia from the early to mid-20th century. Pedal cars lined one section of the garage, pristine examples of the miniature vehicles children once rode in driveways across America. From 1920s fire trucks to 1950s hot rods, Frank had accumulated dozens of these increasingly rare items. Each one was restored to showroom condition, with original paint schemes and working parts carefully preserved or recreated. Vintage bicycles, particularly those from the 1950s and 1960s, occupied another significant portion of the collection. Schwinn Stingrays, classic Huffy models, and rare European children's bikes stood in neat rows. These weren't just random finds. Frank had clearly spent years hunting specific models, colors, and variants to build a comprehensive collection. What made this discovery particularly touching was what it revealed about Frank's childhood. Growing up, Frank had been fascinated by bikes, pedal cars, and mechanical toys. As an adult with resources, he reclaimed that part of his youth by collecting the very items he dreamed about as a kid. Some of the rarest pieces in his toy collection were items most people would never even recognize as valuable. An ordinary person might see an old pedal car as junk, taking up garage space. Frank saw a piece of post-war American manufacturing, a glimpse into how families entertained their children before video games and smartphones. Collectors in the vintage toy community had long known about Frank's passion. At toy shows and specialty auctions, Frank was a recognized figure, someone whose knowledge and collection commanded respect. But for casual American Pickers viewers, this side of Frank was largely hidden, revealed only occasionally in episodes where toys happened to come up during picks. What shocked many people was learning the actual value of Frank's collection. Conservative estimates placed it in the millions of dollars. Some individual motorcycles were worth $50,000 to $100,000 or more. Rare signs could fetch 5 figures. The toy collection alone represented a significant 6-figure investment. This revelation changed how many fans viewed Frank's departure from American Pickers. When he left the show amid health issues and reported conflicts, some assumed he was in financial trouble or that his career was over. But the garage collection proved otherwise. Frank had built substantial wealth through decades of smart picking, collecting, and business operations. But the business success hidden in that garage raised uncomfortable questions about what happened to all of it when Frank's health declined. Who would manage this empire if Frank couldn't? The health crisis that changed everything. By the time Frank's garage and collection became a topic of public discussion, his life had already taken a devastating turn. In July 2022, Frank suffered a severe stroke. The news shocked fans who remembered him as energetic and capable on American Pickers. But those close to Frank revealed that warning signs had been there for years. Signs that the constant travel, physical demands of picking, and stress of his lifestyle were taking a toll. Before the stroke, Frank had already been dealing with Crohn's disease, a chronic inflammatory condition that affects the digestive system. He'd been open about this diagnosis, explaining to fans that it sometimes forced him to take breaks from picking. The disease can cause severe pain, fatigue, and requires careful management. Frank had also struggled with back issues, likely from years of lifting heavy items and awkward physical positions required in picking. Anyone who's watched American Pickers knows the work isn't glamorous. Crawling through dirty spaces, moving furniture, and handling items that might weigh hundreds of pounds. The stroke left Frank unable to care for himself in the immediate aftermath. He required hospitalization and eventually needed to move into a care facility for ongoing treatment and therapy. For someone as independent as Frank, who'd spent his entire adult life on the road making his own decisions, this loss of autonomy was devastating. News of Frank's condition prompted an outpouring of support from fans. Social media is filled with well wishes and memories of favorite American Pickers moments. People who'd met Frank at his store or at collector events shared stories of his kindness and generosity. But the stroke also raised urgent questions about Frank's collection. Who was managing it? What would happen to decades of accumulated treasures if Frank couldn't oversee them personally? The garage full of valuable items suddenly represented not just his life's work, but a complicated asset that needed protection and management. Reports emerged that a court-appointed guardian was assigned to help manage Frank's affairs, including his extensive collection and business interests. This legal intervention, while necessary to protect Frank's interests, highlighted how serious his condition was. Friends close to Frank described the situation as heartbreaking. Here was a man who'd lived for the hunt, for the thrill of discovering hidden treasures, now unable to pick and, potentially, unable to even visit his own collection. The garage that had been his sanctuary was now just another asset to be managed by others. The health crisis also cast his departure from American Pickers in a new light. While there had been public statements about conflicts with Mike Wolfe and the production, insiders suggested that Frank's declining health had been a major factor. The physical demands of constant filming, travel, and picking had become unsustainable. In the months following the stroke, updates on Frank's condition were limited. Privacy concerns and the complexity of his recovery meant that fans were left largely in the dark about his progress. Some reports suggested he was making slow improvements. Others painted a more concerning picture of ongoing challenges. The stroke hadn't just affected Frank physically. Those who'd spoken with him reported cognitive changes as well, which isn't unusual after severe strokes. This raised even more concerns about his ability to make decisions about his collection, his businesses, and his future. But even as Frank struggled with his health, another battle was brewing, one that would pit former friends against each other and shock fans even more. The friendship that fell apart on national television. While Frank's health crisis was deeply personal, another story was unfolding publicly that left fans heartbroken: the collapse of his friendship with Mike Wolfe. For over a decade on American Pickers, Frank and Mike had been portrayed as best friends and perfect picking partners. But behind the scenes, cracks had been forming for years. The first public sign of trouble came when Frank didn't return for later seasons of American Pickers. Initial statements were vague, mentioning that Frank was taking time off for back surgery and health issues. But as time passed with no return, speculation grew. When new episodes aired with Mike picking alongside different partners, it became clear something had fundamentally changed. In July 2021, Frank gave an interview that shocked the American Pickers fan base. He revealed that he hadn't spoken to Mike in over 2 years. Frank said he'd reached out multiple times, but never received responses. He claimed that their friendship had essentially ended, though he didn't fully understand why. Frank's comments painted a picture of someone hurt and confused. He'd considered Mike one of his closest friends, someone he'd built a business and a show with. To be cut off without clear explanation left him feeling betrayed and abandoned. The timing was particularly cruel. Frank was already dealing with health issues when the friendship collapsed. The support he might have expected from a longtime friend wasn't there. Instead, there was silence and distance. Mike's public response came after Frank's stroke, when he posted a tribute on social media expressing concern and recalling their years together. But many fans found the timing suspicious and the message hollow. Where had that friendship been when Frank was struggling before the stroke? Why had it taken a medical crisis to prompt public acknowledgement? The situation became even more complicated when reports surfaced about the business side of their relationship. American Pickers wasn't just a show where two friends picked together. There were complicated business arrangements, ownership stakes, and financial considerations that fans never saw. Some insiders suggested that the split had been brewing for years, fueled by creative differences about the show's direction. Frank reportedly wanted American Pickers to focus more on the actual picking, the history, and the education. Mike, according to these accounts, was more interested in the entertainment value and expanding the brand. There were also rumors about jealousy and competition. As the show's primary star, Mike received more attention, higher compensation, and had more control over creative decisions. Frank, despite being equally important to the show's success in many fans' eyes, was essentially the sidekick. Over years, that imbalance apparently created resentment. The garage and Frank's extensive collection became relevant to this conflict in unexpected ways. Some speculated that disputes over items picked for the show versus items for personal collections had created friction. Were they truly equal partners in what they found, or had business arrangements favored one over the other? Former crew members and people close to the production have hinted that the on-screen friendship had been strained for years before it finally broke. What viewers saw as genuine camaraderie was increasingly forced and professional rather than authentic. By later seasons, Frank and Mike were reportedly barely speaking off-camera. The falling out devastated fans who'd invested emotionally in their friendship. American Pickers had sold itself partly on the genuine bond between Frank and Mike, two guys who loved picking and enjoyed doing it together. Learning that it had been partly manufactured, or at least that it had soured so completely, felt like a betrayal. Social media erupted with fans taking sides. Many rallied behind Frank, seeing him as the wronged party who'd been pushed out of the show he helped build. Others defended Mike, suggesting that business is business and that fans didn't know the full story. What made the situation even sadder was that it seemed beyond repair. Frank's health crisis meant that even if they wanted to reconcile, the relationship they'd once had was gone. The picking partners who'd traveled America together, shared countless adventures, and built something special were now essentially strangers. But the friendship drama wasn't the only conflict surrounding Frank's collection and legacy. Another fight was about to explode into public view: the legal battle over a lifetime of treasures. As Frank Fritz's health situation became more serious and his ability to manage his own affairs declined, a legal situation developed that would have shocked him if he'd been fully aware. People were fighting over his collection, his property, and his legacy. The appointment of a guardian to manage Frank's affairs was supposed to protect his interests, but like many guardianship situations, it created complicated dynamics around who controlled what. Frank's extensive collection, his store inventory, his property, and his other assets were now being managed by someone else, making decisions Frank couldn't make himself. Reports emerged about family members and former business associates raising concerns about how Frank's assets were being handled. Questions arose about whether items from his collection were being sold appropriately, whether his interests were truly being protected, or whether the guardian arrangement was serving others more than Frank. The value of Frank's collection made these concerns more than academic. With millions of dollars in motorcycles, toys, signs, and other collectibles sitting in his garage and properties, the stakes were enormous. Every decision about selling, preserving, or managing these items had significant financial implications. Some former friends of Frank's expressed concern publicly, suggesting that Frank wouldn't have wanted certain items sold or that deals were being made that didn't reflect the true value of pieces he'd spent decades accumulating. Others defended the guardian's actions, pointing out the complexity of managing such an extensive collection and the need to ensure Frank's medical and care expenses were covered. The legal situation also raised questions about Frank's will and estate planning. Had he made adequate preparations for what should happen to his collection if he became incapacitated? Did he have clear instructions about which pieces should never be sold versus which could be liquidated if necessary? Auction houses and dealers who'd worked with Frank for years found themselves in awkward positions. Some were contacted about purchasing items from Frank's collection, but weren't sure if they should, questioning whether these sales truly represented Frank's wishes or were simply necessary liquidations. Some members of the collector community organized informally to try to track what was happening with Frank's collection. They monitored auction listings, watched for items appearing for sale, and tried to document what was being sold and for how much. Their goal was partly to protect Frank's legacy and partly to ensure his collection didn't get dispersed for less than its true worth. But could anything be saved from the garage that would preserve Frank's legacy? Or would it all just be scattered to the winds? What the future holds for Frank. As of early 2025, Frank Fritz's situation remains uncertain and heartbreaking. Updates on Frank's health have been limited, and carefully managed by those responsible for his care. Some reports suggest he's made incremental progress in rehabilitation, learning to speak and move again after the stroke. Other accounts paint a more sobering picture of ongoing struggles and a long road ahead. The American Pickers fan base remains loyal, with regular social media posts asking for updates on Frank's condition and expressing hope for his recovery. Fan pages dedicated to Frank continue to share favorite moments from the show and celebrate his contributions to making picking mainstream. There's been discussion among fans and collectors about creating some kind of permanent recognition of Frank's impact. Ideas have ranged from a museum exhibit of his collection to a documentary about his life and career. Whether any of these will materialize depends partly on the legal and health situations being resolved. The fate of Frank's collection remains in flux. Some pieces have reportedly been sold, either to cover care expenses or as part of estate management. Other items remain in storage, their future uncertain. Collectors who knew Frank hope that at least some of his personal collection will be preserved intact, perhaps donated to a museum where it can educate future generations. American Pickers continues without Frank, now hosted by Mike Wolfe, alongside various partners. The show goes on, but many longtime fans say it's never been quite the same. Frank's absence is felt not just in the picking dynamics, but in the overall spirit of the show. What do you think should happen to Frank Fritz's collection? Do you believe Frank and Mike Wolfe will ever reconcile? Or is that friendship gone forever? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.